his retirement plans. Justin Haley signs with JJ Yaley's teammate now at Rick Ware Racing. Marchurch Jr. is mum on himself returning to NASCAR, and Joe and I will give you our power rankings. This is Stuck in the Catchfence. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Welcome in. My name is Ryan Peters with Joe Spillman. Joe, I got to hear that last night. Boogity, boogity, boogity during the SRX race. At first, I didn't think it was going to happen. The first two heats came on. We didn't hear it. But for the grand finale, the one and only D-Dub, boogity, boogity, boogity.
Boogity, boogity, boogity.
And
Amen.
all in the world felt right for just one moment.
Yes.
Well, Joe, you look a little burnt. I noticed that you've been going outside on the river, leaving your van. How's that going?
Yeah. It's going great. Every once in a while, as you know, I live in a van by the river, and
Yes.
every once in a while, I do have to escape the van. My AC is not working real well in the van. So what I did is I bought four. Well, I didn't buy them. I actually got them floating down the river. 4 of those big blue drums. And then I went to Lowe's and stole some wood because I learned about the policy that Lowe's will not pursue you if you steal. They'll just be like, hey, man, you can't steal that. And you could be like, nah, dog, but I'm taking it.
And
they're
you
like,
tested that by stealing wood versus like a $3,000 lawnmower.
Well, I had to build my pontoon boat. So I have the big blue barrels. I got me some 2x4s and some plywood from the Lowe's in my van, and took them down, and I strapped them all up with some 550 cord, and it's holding together pretty well. Although a barge did go by today, and I thought my boat was going to break apart, but my little 3.5 horsepower motor on my DIY pontoon boat held together pretty strong. I went about 7 miles today in 4.5 hours, and I got the shit burned out of me.
I'm sorry I asked. That was a much longer story for a burnt forehead than I was totally expecting.
Right, and it was a complete lie.
Oh, well, that's not fun at all. Well, Joe, I want to begin this with a quick topic. Okay. And something that kind of surprised the NASCAR world, and even you and I included. Justin Haley, out of nowhere, will leave Colleague Racing and sign with Rick Ware Racing. When I heard this, I was completely flabbergasted. Number one, I knew that Justin Haley had a good connection with Colleague, has been going through Colleague. He's 24 years old. It seems like it has a pretty bright future. You know, the other driver for Colleague's 41 years old, so it makes sense to have a younger guy with an older guy. And out of nowhere, I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. Out of nowhere, Rick Ware Racing with a rare Rick Ware dub, getting a 24-year-old Justin Haley. What were your initial thoughts when you heard that?
My initial thoughts were JJ Yaley needed a good teammate, and by God, Rick Ware went out and he did what he could to really up that team. No, but in all seriousness, I think maybe this is finally Rick Ware. Maybe they're trying to make something of this team finally, and maybe they're looking at him as a driver that can actually take that team to the next level.
I will say this: we have held plenty of RWR jokes. Number one, because he employed his son. I mean, that's simple
beat the shit out of his wife.
Yes,
twice.
So, and it's the first thing he's beat all year long.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, they mentioned last year they had a 3-year plan. Getting JJ Yaley was a step in the right direction. We've teased, and obviously you've been the JJ homer. You weren't on the show when he got a top 10, so That was tough. I know not to be on here whenever your boy JJ got top 10.
That's my boy. I
But
picked him last week.
You did pick him last week. They also have had Jenson Button, world renowned driver, come in. But getting somebody like Justin Haley, and he said that he joined because of the alliance that RFK has with them now. And that was one of the reasons why. And we've seen what RFK's done in a very short amount of time since Brad Keselowski's got there. So it is a step in the right direction. That being said, like I've read other people talk, and I'm like, there's only one direction for Rick Ware Racing to go, and that was up. I mean, there was no other way. It was either tread water or go up. But I think this is a big move. But I mean, when it comes to the prospect that is JJ Yaley, didn't you think that he had a higher pedigree than what possibly Rick Ware Racing can offer? I mean, where do you sit with Justin Haley overall as a prospect?
I mean, I think that Justin Haley, he's a young driver. He's obviously a talented driver. I don't think college racing was the end all be all for him. I did not see. I thought Justin Haley's move would be to a Joe Gibbs eventually. Possibly. When Hendrick got rid of Alex Bowman. Possibly.
So you had high hopes for him.
Yeah, then. Yeah, I did. I thought eventually that he could move into one of the premier teams or would move into one of the premier teams, and he still may. I mean, he's 24 years old. If he can go to Rick Ware Racing and have a presence next year, I mean, he's going to be able to write his own check essentially. I mean, if you could take that dog shit of a team and have top 15 finishes consistently, he's going to be able to write his own check moving into a premier team. I think this may be, this may be a great move by Justin Haley, because right now what you see is he's with a mediocre average team, and he has mediocre and average finishes, and he's finishing right where you would expect him to finish. But if he, like I said, if he comes out next year and has a halfway decent season over the next couple of years with Rick Ware Racing, he's going to be an in-demand driver for a premier team.
Yeah, and you got to think of it this way too, Joe. If Trackhouse Racing didn't go get a New Zealand race car driver to come into NASCAR for one race, now going to be two, he would be in the playoffs with a win at Chicago. I mean, he was leading that race. It was the two of those guys, and and Shane Van Gissenberg did a great move to pass him. The only thing that I can speculate, Joe, and this is purely hypothetical, is I feel like Justin Haley makes this move we know how hard it is to get charters. I think he makes this move with the intent of Rick Ware Racing and RFK combining to make a 4-team car ownership group.
That's a possibility.
That's how I view it right now, because they spoke a lot about RFK, and if he was to leave Kaulig to go to RFK based on what we've seen this year, Joe, I think we both would have went, that's a good move. That's a solid move for an up and coming team. A two-team group that has both drivers in the playoffs as we speak right now. So that's the only thing that I can say. But my last question to you,
is there something in the pipeline that Rick Ware is going to sell to RFK?
They just said that they've become an alliance, and Rick Ware Racing actually moved into RFK's headquarters. Okay. So they do have a portion of their vehicles in the headquarters. So unless they're viewing themselves, there are alliances everywhere. Like Kaulig is an alliance with RCR, right. And that's kind of what I want to move forward with you about. The supposed driver to replace Justin Haley comes from RCR, and that would be Austin Hill. That is what Bob Pockras is reporting right now. Austin Hill, 29 years old, has not run a lot in the Cup Series, but having one of his best years, if not his best year right now. 3 wins in that car, and then he's won a ton in the trucks as well. At 29 years old, he's kind of later in his career. It makes sense to go to maybe Kaulig Racing. Right. But Joe, the first person that came to my mind was SVG, and I thought that, okay, he won't be going into a great ride, but he could be going into a mid ride. But if they do decide to go with Austin Hill, do you think that's a good move for Colleague, or do you think that's kind of just a lateral move?
Well, I don't think Austin Hill has the future that Justin Haley could have. I would say it's more of a lateral. We'll see what he can do in the Cup Series, I guess. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's kind of moving into the Cup Series at 30 years old. That's kind of a late bloomer to me. We'll see what he can put up. He's definitely a veteran race car driver. So, I mean, I don't think they go backward with Austin Hill, but I don't think that they have a bright future with him either.
Yeah, I know some people were thinking possibly Chandler Smith, who's now at Colleague. He's 20 years old, so I that's really young. I mean, that would be shooting your shot. But after what we've seen with Noah Gragson this year, I don't think people are going to be shooting their shot with really, really, really young drivers unless it's just the second coming of the next Chase Elliott, William Byron, or Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
So that being said, Joe, it's time to get into the news. Joe just feels like he's at a rave now. I mean, just slamming Jaeger bombs nonstop.
I was about to hit some ecstasy.
X gonna give it to you. Nah, he did.
That's right.
But first thing on the news docket, Joe, is Martin Truex Jr., also known as MTJ, also known as the most boring winner in NASCAR, still will not let anyone know if he's going to return next year or not. What are your feelings now that Martin Truex is still uncertain for next year, even though he is having currently a really, really good year?
Well, I think that is exactly why he's uncertain for next year. Because I think if Martin Truex Jr. goes off and he wins this whole damn thing this year, I think that's probably the last we'll see of him. I think if he comes close and he comes close enough to taste it, I think he'll be back for another year to give it a shot. So I think it's one of those deals where he understands how well he's running this year, how good his team's doing. And if he can end with the championship and on a high note, I think he's going to sail off into the sunset. And that's exactly why he won't answer.
That makes sense. I don't try to be like pushing headlines and things of that nature that I can't say are true. But, I mean, we both agree that Martin Truex, at least we feel, Martin Truex and Kyle Busch were treated very differently last year than the other two drivers. Do you think that that's one of the reasons why he hasn't came out and said that he's ready to commit to another couple years? I mean, he's 41 years old. He's not that old. I mean, Kyle Busch has laid out his future plans, like we'll talk about here in a little bit. Actually, Martin Truex says, yeah, he's 41 years old. Do you think that has anything to do with it, or do you just think that he just doesn't really know right now?
Well, I think Martin Truex has never been one to public. I mean, he really has never publicly bashed JGR. He's never come out and said that. He's been kind of tight-lipped with that. I don't know. I don't know on that. That's a great point. I really couldn't say either way. I'm kind of sticking to that could be a possibility. You mentioned that. I really hadn't even thought of it. So, that's a great point. And maybe that's exactly what's going on. I don't think that, obviously him and Kyle Busch have kind of different demeanors when it comes to what they'll say in the public eye. And I think Kyle Busch was kind of outspoken about the conundrum they were in last year and kind of put it out there. And everybody knew what was going on. They knew the frustration with JGR and them not offering a sponsorship or really communicating what's going on as well. They could be doing the same thing with Martin Truex Jr. this year, and he's just tight-lipped about it, and maybe that's what he's waiting on.
Yeah, I did see something earlier today in one of the NASCAR groups. I was trying to find it, and it said the year is 2045. Ty Gibbs has already won his third NASCAR championship.
Oh, bullshit.
Brexton Busch is on his way into the Cup Series after winning 4 races, and Martin Truex Jr. is still mum on if he's going to return next year or not.
That may be true. The Brexton part will be true. Who did you say? Austin Dillon?
No, Ty Gibbs.
Oh, Ty Gibbs. Oh, okay.
Yeah, wins his third, but and it had Martin Truex with like a beard like down to here. I was trying to find it, I could not find it, but
That's pretty funny.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think with Martin Truex Jr. I mean, like you said, I mean he's a guy that when you ask him something, I don't feel like he's hiding anything, but he definitely doesn't go and search for news, or he doesn't go and search for clickbait, and things of that nature. Unlike Tony Stewart last night that said, "Tony Kanaan, I know you're watching this. I'm getting your ass next week." That's Tony Stewart. I mean, we expect that from Tony Stewart and people like that, which is hilarious because when he's in the booth, he has the personality of a snail. But by God, you put him behind a race car, and that anger sure does come out.
Well, you got to get that adrenaline shot in you. Really,
it's something. Yeah. It's something. By the way, heard a cool nickname last night. Ryan Priest Lightning. What do you think about that?
No, I don't like Ryan Priest. No,
Elsa, let it go.
Not since Bristol. That guy's a punk. What a bitch.
A little bit of news on him. He will be back next year. That is something that's been quoted by Stewart Haas Racing. But the main thing that we showed on the thumbnail is that Kyle Busch has outlined his retirement plans. Unlike Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, 8 years from now, seems like he will know what he'll be doing when it comes to the sport of NASCAR. So I will lay this out for you, Joe. I'm not sure how much of this you have heard or listened to, but Kyle Busch said that he wants to race in the Cup Series for the next 7 to 8 years. So then when Brexton is 16, he and Brexton can split a truck ride together. And then when Brexton turns 18, Kyle Busch will go full-time in the Truck Series one last year, try to win the Truck Championship to be the first driver to win in all 3 series, and then retire and hand over the reins to Brexton. And he said he will be 49 or 50 years old when that happens, and then live through Brexton. What do you think of Kyle Busch's plans for the rest of his career?
That guy is looking toward the future, and I applaud him because I can't look to next week. And I think that is a fairy tale plan that I hope he can play out, really, because I mean, what better way to end a career like Kyle Busch, to hand over the reins to his son and root his son on for however many years his son decides to race and however many years Kyle Busch has left. So I think that I'm all for it. If it can play out, I'm all for it.
What do you think would be the most difficult part of the plan? That stay in NASCAR for 7 to 8 more years in the Cup Series, running alongside his son, because when you're 16, you're allowed to run in the truck, but you're not allowed to run in super speedways.
Right.
Or become Truck Series champion when he's 49 or 50 years old.
I think that is the biggest long shot. I think Brexton's obviously on the path. He's he's got the right pedigree. He's going to get a ride. I mean, we know that his dad owns a race team, for Christ's sake. So obviously he's gonna get a ride. We know that's going to happen. I think at 50 years old, trying to win in any of the top series in NASCAR, whether it be Truck, Xfinity, or the Cup Series, I mean, you still, I don't care if you're the best driver on the planet, you still have to have a lot go right for you, and that's probably the biggest hurdle in his fairy tale plan that he'll have to overcome, because whether or not he can be consistent, all it takes is that one race at the end of the playoffs, and you're out. So
yeah, you could get Ron Hornaday,
like
he did Ron Hornaday. Now I mean, looking at it this way, and this is one of the reasons why I love Kyle Busch, is because he recognizes his place in history. He was recently interviewed at Sonoma and said, I should be able to catch Dale Earnhardt by next year. So those type of things in history, while he never ever degrades the people that he's aligned to in history or have represented the sport, I think he also knows his placement. And what's neat to me is he's literally looking, like you said, Joe, you and I don't know we may not know what we're doing this weekend. I mean, if somebody asked me what I'm going to do at 6:00 on Sunday, hopefully the race is done. Maybe, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking 10 years from now and saying, I want to be the first driver to win in all 3 series. And those are the type of accomplishments. And I think that's why, if you understand Kyle Busch and his personality, that's why he is the way he is, because he sets these goals, these standards that a lot of people in life don't do in general. That's why they aimlessly do things without purpose. And Kyle Busch is a purpose-driven athlete and one of the greatest to ever do it. But I honestly think the biggest wild card is, will Brexton Busch want to race in NASCAR? I think talking about an 8-year-old kid right now, that's the biggest wild card. I have no doubt that Kyle Busch will have the speed and things of that nature to run late in his career to win a Truck Series championship. He might be long in the tooth, but it's not because he had poor ride. He owns his own ride, so it's not because he's going to have great equipment. And I also believe he's going to be competitive the next 7 to 8 years. My biggest thing is, do you want to follow your dad's footsteps? Sometimes that works out, but really, I mean, the best driver to follow that path right now has been Chase Elliott. So we'll see. We'll see. Not everybody wants to grow up to be their dad.
I think that's there's no way Brexton Busch is not going to grow up to be a race car driver. There's no way. I mean, his dad's Kyle Busch. He's probably the best race car driver to grace us with their presence in history. He is, and I'm not even a huge Kyle Busch fan. I mean, when you talk about what he's done in all 3 series, the wins that he's put out, I mean, you could talk about the King all day long, but when you're winning races by 7 laps in the late 60s and early 70s, you kind of got to put an asterisk next to the 200 wins there.
On your 4th race of the week.
On your 4th race of the week. Kyle Busch has won legitimate races throughout his whole career, and he's won a whole bunch of them in all 3 series. He's the best race car driver that we've seen. And I know, I guess, best race car driver, some people might take offense to that. He is the most prolific race car driver we've seen in the modern era.
Yeah, and I think, Joe, your driver, Kyle Larson, at the end of it, he has a long way to go to win the things that he's done in the stock car series. But I think we'll also look at Kyle Larson, and the argument will be on Mount Rushmore, who is a better driver? Is it Kyle Busch because of what he did in stock car? Is it Kyle Larson because what he did in anything that had 4 wheels?
Right.
I look forward to when we're old and doing this show and going, you son of a bitch, you don't remember Michigan in 2013 is what your problem is.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think Kyle Larson is going to have a huge notch in that category if he can go to the Indy 500 next year and win.
If he wins at the Indy 500, he could never drive another car, and he probably would.
What else do you have to do?
I don't know. I honestly, God, I don't know.
Outside of winning 7 championships, what else would you have to do?
Yeah.
Which you can't do anymore. I'm sorry.
And he spent the early part of his career at Chip Ganassi Racing. I mean, imagine if he was the one growing up in Hendrick when he was 20 years old. It's a fun argument, but it's just, I wanted to highlight the 2 differences. Is Martin Truex Jr. is 41, has no idea what he's going to do. And Kyle Busch is like, yeah, I got it all laid out till I'm 50. I mean, what could go wrong?
And that's just us speculating. Martin Truex very well may know what he's going to do, just like Kyle Busch. But we had talked in this discussion a little bit earlier. You have Kyle Busch who tells you everything. You got Martin Truex Jr. who doesn't tell you shit. So, that may be Martin Truex Jr.'s plan.
It could be.
He can make his life a lot
easier. Yeah. Oh God, Jesus, yeah. So he'll be 80. That's great.
Recky Reckermison. That's what I call him.
So, Joe, now we're going to do a brain exercise. And I didn't tell you we were going to do this earlier, and that's on me. I want you to go along with me on this journey, and I want to name the top 5 drivers right now in the sport.
Ooh.
We're 6 races away from the playoffs. And I want you to think about it this way, too. Right now, and who do you think can have success in the playoffs as well? So we can each give our 5th. We can each give our 1st. It's probably easier to go 1 through 5 than it is 5 through 1. So I can start off first if you want me to.
Yeah, let's go. Let's count them down. 5.
You want to do 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's going to be harder. Let's do 1.
Okay. Who's the best driver?
Who's the best driver right now? And I think moving into the playoffs, my opinion is Martin Truex Jr. I feel like he's run really, really good on road courses. He's run really, really good on mile and a halves. He just did really, really good on a flat oval. He did good at Dover. So my number 1, the old men are back to the top of the charts in NASCAR. So I will say going into with 6 races left to go, I think Martin Truex Jr. is my number 1 spot.
I disagree.
All right. So who you got?
I think he's in the top 5. So I'll throw that out there. But right now, your number 1 has to be, outside of mechanical failure and getting into some other trouble. And I hate to say this because Mr. No Personality himself, William Byron, has to be. He has to be, Ryan.
Dude, he's backed into like 2 wins out of his 4.
But you don't back into wins in NASCAR unless you're Bubba Wallace.
Alex Bowman backs into wins.
No, he doesn't.
But Martin Truex Jr., his wins have been more dominating, absolute dominating.
Or Kyle Busch on Bristol Dirt. Those are the only Bubba Wallace in a rain delayed Talladega, and Kyle Busch at Bristol Dirt in 2022. Those are the only 2 legitimate back end wins that you have. Outside of that, your team has set you up to win that race. So it's got to be William Byron right now.
It doesn't have to be William Byron.
It's got to be.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. I disagree.
It doesn't have to be.
I'll fight you right now.
You can. That's fine. I am 1 juicy peach away from getting things are going to go crazy.
All right. What's your number 2?
My number 2, I would go William Byron. He's had a good he's had a really good organization. He's been fast the entire year. But I look at it this way. Okay, Joe, let me ask you this. William Byron can dominate at what track? What track do you look at and say, well, this is a track for William Byron? I can't do that. I think it could be any track.
Any mile and a half.
Maybe. I don't really believe that, though. I just feel like it's just randomness. Like, William Byron's going to be fast, but he's never going to dominate. That's how I feel with William Byron. And that's a good thing to have. I mean, he has pretty much done everything he can outside of Martin Truex winning another race of locking up the regular season championship. The difference being is when Martin Truex, running the way he is right now, can go out there and nobody can remotely close touch him. And I feel like that's why I give him the edge. Plus, Toyota's on the mile and a half. He's been really, really good at road races. So Martin Truex, 1 for me. 2 would be William Byron because of what he's done so far in the Hendrick car. He could win he could absolutely come out at Pocono and win this race. But it's not because I looked at all of his Pocono stats and said he's a good Pocono driver. It's just because I think he's in great equipment, and sometimes they hit it, and when they hit it, they do well. And other times when they don't hit it, he gets 12th. That's the worst case scenario so far with Willie B.
Yeah, I agree. But I think he's number 1.
Okay.
Right now. And I think Martin Truex Jr. is number 2.
Okay.
For all those reasons, we don't have to go into that. Let's hear your number 3.
Number 3 right now. This is tough for me because I'm actually torn between both of our drivers.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to look right now and say who is number 3, I kind of feel the same way with Kyle Busch to a certain extent on the randomness. Kyle Busch won at Talladega. That's random AF. I mean, there doesn't get more random than Kyle Busch winning at Talladega. That being said, he also has a couple wins where he was really, really good. He just recently had a streak where he had 7 top 7s in a row.
Right.
So I look at it that way. I look at Kyle Larson. When Kyle Larson's really, really good, he's a 1 through 3 driver. He just has had some weird stuff where he's had a lot of DNFs this year too. Do I hold that against him, or do I look at that and go, he just got caught up at the wrong place at the wrong time? I'm going to go with the Hendrick driver and say that Kyle Larson is right now number 3, because a part of me looks at this and go, if I could choose anyone to go through this playoff series and just dominate, Joe, in 2 rounds, it would be Kyle Larson and Martin Truex. So I would choose Kyle Larson. I don't think that RCR has the short track package for me to say that with Kyle Busch. So I will go Kyle Larson number 3.
Well, and that's interesting too, because I was actually torn just like you between Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson at 3 and 4. And I could really put Kyle Busch in 3 and Kyle Larson in 4, or switch them around. I feel like they're really neck and neck, and I feel like at the end of the day, when you talk about Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson, I think that they are the two best race car drivers in the series, the most talented race car drivers in the series. And you're absolutely right with Kyle Larson. I feel like whether or not he himself puts himself in the position to be caught up in wrecks, and sometimes I think he does that because he's a driver that picks a line on a racetrack, and he's very good at picking the fastest line. But one thing he does is he won't deviate from that line during the race. And I think sometimes that is the dirt track race car driver coming out in him, because you see a lot of the dirt track drivers, or if you're a fan of dirt, what they try to do is get up on that cushion and ride that cushion and push the cushion up until there's no more cushion left for that grip. And it's almost like he has the mentality of, this is the line I'm going to keep. This is what's giving me the best time, and I'm going to stay there. So I think sometimes he puts himself in that situation where, he causes himself to be caught up in something that he probably shouldn't. The only thing I can say about Kyle Busch really is you're right. The short track package isn't there. I think they've been good everywhere else though. So I'm kind of torn. I'm going to say 3 and 4. I'm going to say we have a tie for third with that. So that'll take up the 3 and 4 positions, because I really can't pick one or the other.
If I was to ask you right now, Joe, who do you think has the most top 10s in NASCAR?
Right now this season?
Yeah.
That's probably Ty. No, it's not Ty Gibbs, is it?
Ty Gibbs? No. He's got his highest finish is 9th. He's done that 3 times.
Okay. I felt like there was a string there where, okay. No, I don't know. Is it Kyle Larson?
It's Kyle Busch.
Is it Kyle
He has 12. William Byron has 11. And then Logano, Blaney, Bell, and Larson are tied with 10, and Truex. So also, when you go to look at DNFs, Kyle Larson leads all in NASCAR with 6, tied with Austin Dillon and Noah Gragson. So probably would have lost a lot of money if you would have made that bet.
I will caveat, I thought that was a trick question. That's why I came up with a ridiculous answer.
That's okay.
Like, he's trying to catch me here.
No, I only asked you, Joe, because I didn't know. Now I will ask you who has the most top 5s.
I feel like that's William Byron.
It's Kyle Larson.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, that's what we're talking about. Like, Kyle Larson has the most top 5s and the most DNFs. Kyle Busch has the most top 10s and has 4 DNFs himself. It's been like a roller coaster. Like, I mean, you can watch a race. We've watched a race where both of our drivers were like, man, I can't wait till Sunday 20 laps in. All right, he wrecked. Okay, well, I guess I'll watch for the show. But, and it's just kind of random things. But, I think those two drivers are that close. But I also think, Joe, if they both make it past the second round, we legitimately go, this could be one of the greatest meetings in our lifetime, watching Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch in the Final Four. I don't think we've ever had that before, is to watch those two drivers in the Final Four. And that could be like watching history in itself, a Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt of their times, because of what we could possibly see. But I think the next one, to me, by far is the hardest. Who do you have at 5?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Because if you want to look at stats, it is like plain Jane from 5th through 11th. So whoever you have at 5 probably statistically is not going to have anything backing them up versus anybody else. But right now, who would you have at 5th?
It would have to. I don't know. I mean, the two drivers that come to mind for that position would probably be Denny Hamlin or Christopher Bell. But I don't know. I don't know who I'm taking there.
So let me go through this real quick to let you know how dominant the top 4 have been. Wins: Byron, Busch, Truex, Larson. Top 5s: Larson, Byron, Busch, Truex. Top 10s: Busch, Byron, Larson, Truex. I mean, those are the stats you look at and you say, okay, these guys by far and away are the best 4 in NASCAR. Okay. But we know, Joe, but we've watched NASCAR enough. One of those guys will not make the Final 4. Statistically speaking, somebody is going to make the Final 4. Last year it was Ross Chastain, just coming out of nowhere with the Hail Melon. Chase Briscoe even made the Final 4.
You almost got to throw Ross Chastain in there in the argument in the top 5 as well. So I hate to do it, but
so who would if you had to put money on one, who would you pick as your 5th? Or do you want me to go first?
I think I'll probably go with the veteran there with Denny Hamlin. I think I'm probably going to go with the age and the experience. And I can't stand Denny Hamlin, but I think if you're talking about a championship and getting it done, I think that he would probably have the best shot out of those 3 that we're talking about.
So Denny Hamlin right now is 6th in laps led. He is also 3rd in stage wins. But let me give you this stat. Would you believe that Joey Logano has more top 10s than Denny Hamlin and is tied with Kyle Larson and Martin Truex? Does it feel like the defending champion is having that good of a year?
No, it doesn't. And I think you always have to throw him in there. Joey Logano is this year he's been almost quiet, but
he has.
Last year he was almost quiet until the playoffs. Yep. So, I think Joey Logano is one of those guys you forget about until you realize, oh yeah, he's really good.
Yeah. I, for selfish reasons, will go with Christopher Bell. I predicted him to win the championship before the year started. I think he has the talent. His pit crew last week was absolutely horrific. They screwed up twice on pit road. I think cost him one of his best tracks. I mean, at one point he won in the Xfinity race 4 years in a row at New Hampshire. So I will go with Christopher Bell. I understand you going with Denny Hamlin. At some point, it just feels like Denny Hamlin's going to luck into a championship. Like things are going to go right. It could be this year. We're still a long ways away from that. I mean, we're 16 races away, but, I just wanted to do this thought exercise, Joe, because when I was running through it in my mind, I'm like, okay, how are we going to see this? And we literally have 5 different drivers in 5 different spots. So I feel like that's the kind of season we're having so far. And I bet if we ask our audience what are their top five, their top 5 would be different as well.
Yeah.
So
comment. Give us your top 5.
Let us know what you think for the top 5 so far in NASCAR as well. Also, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Let us know who your favorite driver is, and you have a chance to win a nice diecast car. Not that one. That one's mine.
That one's going to be mine.
But you can have one of Joe's.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. The Dale Jr. Bush.
Yeah.
AC Delco car.
Yeah.
Is AC Delco still a brand?
I think so.
Think so? Okay. Hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah.
All right, Joe.
They
it's
make
time.
Batteries.
Do they?
Yeah.
Gotcha. It's time to get into the tricky triangle.
I feel like you should have a.
I have the power to accidentally cut Joe off, and I used it there. I am sorry, Joe.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
What was you saying? I think you should. And that drop line had people sitting on the edge of their chair because it was going to be.
Well, I finished what I was going to say, but then decided nobody needs to hear it.
And nobody will. I didn't even hear it. All I heard was an.
It's probably best.
Oh.
So we can remain friends.
Well, there goes my smile. So we're diving into the tricky triangle. And NASCAR Chasm had a good thing. It says, what turn 4? And he said that should be abbreviated to just WTF4.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good one. Pocono, for whatever reason, used to be a really dangerous track. I don't know what happened with those older cars back in the day. Thankfully, we haven't seen a huge accident like we've seen in our shorts. But mainly this is a strategy race. This is a fuel saving race, as Joe got to watch Kyle Larson. I think he was going for 6 wins in a row.
Just ran out of gas.
He hit the wall. He flattened a tire on the last turn.
Yeah, his tire went flat. That's right.
And when I was there, I was at that doubleheader. I thought that I'll be honest, I said he just purposely wrecked so Alex Bowman could win. But then I actually saw the replay, and clearly he lost a tire. Yeah, go ahead.
Was that 2021 or 2020?
2021.
Yeah.
Yep. So, the doubleheader there. I mean, think about the races we've had here recently, and it's not this exciting track everybody wants to talk about, but we've had Kyle Larson run out of fuel to Alex Bowman win on the last lap. We've had Kyle Busch win with only 4th gear. That the next race on the doubleheader. And then last year, Joe, we had Tapegate, where 5 minutes before we went on air to talk about the race,
yeah,
you call me in your typical I'm going to F with Ryan fashion and go, hey, Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin just got disqualified. And I'm like, no, they didn't. They're like, yeah, they did. They just took their race away for the first time in NASCAR history. This is like the 50s. Yes. Yeah. And I'm like, no, they didn't. And I started the show by talking about Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin 1-2. And then I was like, just kidding. Nobody knows what the F happened, and threw all my flags. So we've had some memorable moments here recently. What are you looking forward to here at the Tricky Triangle?
Pocono is almost like, I kind of think it's more technical than your everyday super speedway crapshoot, but it's got a lot of that in it. But like I said, you got to know how to drive this track, and experience takes over at this track. And that's why when you look at past winners of Pocono, you see multiple people winning at this track multiple times, because it's a track that, once you figure it out, you definitely stand out at the track. And, like Kyle Busch is one that's got this track figured out. I think he's got 3 or 4 wins here. Martin Truex has got this track figured out. I think he's got 3 wins at Pocono. So Chase Elliott, you gotta put an asterisk next to that win, because he didn't win last year. Denny Hamlin won, and I think that is something that has to be kept in mind when betting on this race. I think this race, what you look for is why I think a Christopher Bell or a driver like that can win this race. I think it's unlikely. I think we see a veteran driver who's run this track multiple times win this race tomorrow. They understand how to draft, they understand how to pass, and they understand how to navigate the hellacious turns into this track. So that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for, and that's how I'm going to bet this race.
Yeah, and talking about Pocono, like if this is your first time watching it, there's 3 different turns. There's the first turn, which is after a local track in Pennsylvania. The tunnel turn is modeled after the Milwaukee Mile, a turn there, and then the last turn actually is from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So that's how. And you're talking different banking. Turn 1 is severely banked compared to the other ones. The tunnel turn is a really, really quick turn. It carries a lot of speed. It can be really dangerous because drivers cannot pass in that turn. And then the last turn is just a flat, long turn going into the front stretch, Joe, where you're talking back in the day, you used to get to 200 miles an hour. I mean, because it's so long. I believe it's the biggest front or the longest front stretch in NASCAR. But that being said, I would echo everything you said. We do not see young, unexperienced drivers win at this track. And because of those reasons you just laid out. You can be good in 1, but it's hard to be good in 3. You could be fast in 2, but lose ground in 1. I mean, it's just that type of thing that you have to go through as a driver, like you're talking about, Joe, that experience and saying, I'm okay giving up time in 2 as long as I'm fast through 1 and 3. And a young driver, Joe, may be chasing, the rabbit the entire time and not giving off that feedback to be fast and willing to give up, a little bit of time here to gain time in these other 2 spots. So I agree with you. I if I was to make my FanDuel lineup today, it would be veteran drivers, in this track. I mean, even a guy like Michael McDowell placed 8th here last year. Michael McDowell's been in this sport a long time. That's why.
Well, and we'll just go and so since I feel like we should go back farther than that, but since 2015, I'm gonna the only person since 2015 to win here that I would say is not a superstar in this sport is Chris Buescher.
Yep.
And that was in 2016.
And he ran because it rained. It was a rain-short race.
Right. Much like Bubba Wallace and his win.
Yes.
So, since 2015, you're looking at Martin Truex Jr., Matt Kenseth, Kurt Busch, Chris Buescher, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch, Truex Jr. again, Kyle Busch, Hamlin, Harvick, Hamlin, Alex Bowman, Kyle Busch. And then the race was given to Chase Elliott last year. So, I think if you're going to bet this race this weekend, you would be absolutely crazy to put it on a young guy. I'm not saying that one can't win. I'm not saying that, Justin Haley can't come out and win this race. I just think it's highly unlikely.
All right. Well, Joe, now we'll get into our 5 drivers for the week. Do you want to start first, or would you rather myself?
So I'm going to go with Truex, Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman.
You are going Bowman. That could be your top 20 pick if you want it to be.
Yeah.
He's outside.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? He is. Okay, I'll take him for my top 20. And then obviously take Kyle Larson. And you know what? Kevin Harvick has – how many wins does he have here? I think you got to go way back. Kevin Harvick only has 1 win. I'll go with Kevin Harvick this week.
So repeat them again. I got Truex, Bowman, KFB,
Kyle Larson, and Kevin Harvick.
Okay.
I forgot Alex Bowman's outside the top 20.
Yeah. All right. So I put that in the message board so that people are able to see that if they want to go with that as well. So I will go KFB. I got something popped up as soon as I was trying to do something. Oh my God. What are we? Dude, my mail is going crazy. Welcome to a live show.
Yeah.
I will go KFB, Hamlin, MTJ. I got to go Larson as well. Outside the top 20. I mean, I could kind of cheat too and go Chase Elliott.
Or Alex Bowman.
I'm going to go Chase Elliott.
I wouldn't.
I don't feel good about it.
You should. I'd feel better about Alex Bowman. You know
Kinda
who you
do.
should. You know who you should take? Chris Buescher.
I will not. I will not take Chris Buescher.
You'd have a better chance taking Matt Kenseth.
Chris Buescher, I can't take him. He's inside. He's like 12th in the freaking playoff or in the points, man. I'm going to go Chase. Actually, I'm going to put Mickey Mouse.
You know, Jeremy Mayfield. I'm looking at past winners here. Jeremy Mayfield won this race twice.
Well, yeah, he was so coked up, he cut the turns like twice.
Yeah, it's like I'm all hopped up on Mountain Dew.
We wish it was Mountain Dew. The feds didn't think it was Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, we're excited for the Pocono race this weekend. Do you have anything else you would like to close with here before we give our salutations?
No, I'm excited to see the race. I'm pretty pumped up. I always like watching the race at Pocono. It's like 3 different tracks in one. It's fun to watch. Always some decent wrecks too if you're into that sort of thing at Pocono.
And there are 3 races. Tomorrow is a doubleheader. They will start the truck race, I believe, at 1. It's either noon or 1, and then the Xfinity race will be that night as well. And then I believe the start time is 3:30 for Sunday for Pocono.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, that will wrap it up for our weekly show. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Let us know your top 5 rankings in NASCAR right now and your 5 picks for Pocono as well. But we will be with you Sunday evening after the race. Please, Mother Nature, just one time. Just one time.
Once. Quit raining.
We want to watch a whole race.
Quit raining.
That'll do it for us. Goodbye.